Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, January 12th, 2025. Coming at you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Got a big show coming up for you tonight, and a big surprise. Stepping in for Stefen Rosner is Mr. Mike Leboff from the Islanders Anxiety podcast. Buddy, thanks a lot for helping out, man. How you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm like, Grant Hutton stepping in for Alex Romanov last night.
Right.
Maybe play a little bit more than Grant Hutton did, but happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Glad you made it. Stefen's a little under the weather, so we got the pinch hitter in. We're going to roll through here at Hockey Night in New York. We got Chris Peters joining us of FloHockey. Looking forward to having him on. And before we dive into the show, I want to thank all of our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug a game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. Also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. Also proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And folks, if you're hanging out with us live and you want questions, you want to get your questions in during Questions Brewing, just type in Questions Brewing, ask your question, and we'll hit it up later on. So with the pleasantries out of the way, it is time for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the previous week. So let's start with Sunday, the start of the winning streak, the 3-game winning streak. First time it took half a season. But here we are. Sunday, they go into Boston. They eke out a 5-4 overtime win. Looked like another game where they were going to blow it. Yep. They coughed the lead up. Boston tied at 4-4, but they get some heroics in overtime by Bo Horvat. What'd you see in that game?
I saw basically everything that we've seen from the Islanders in, 65 minutes,
Yes,
right? Some
yes.
good, some bad, some weird, but this time they come out on top with the Horvat breakaway. What was great about that was they just got absolutely dominated in the 3-on-3, which is something we've seen from this team quite a bit too.
Yes.
And
on brand.
I know that if I was an Islander fan, or if that was the Islanders dominating the Bruins, right?
Sure.
I would be like, oh man, we're going to lose this game, right? Like they're going to get one chance,
Right.
they're going to score on it.
Right.
So it was nice to be on the other side of that for a change.
Yeah.
And I had a weird sense of calm as soon as that puck found Horvat, like he was gonna bury it. But just a weird game, like you said, the blown lead. It left like a weird taste in your mouth because they needed to then follow that up, right? That was a one-game winning streak.
Yes, you take what you can get.
Yeah, which they've had a lot of one-game winning streaks this season.
100%.
Very few 2 games. And knowing what was coming on the other side of that game with Vegas, that's what left a weird taste, the way they did it, and then not knowing, obviously, what we know now about that game in Vegas.
Yeah, and that Boston game is something they've kind of been doing lately where they're getting out to these leads. They're making it scary, but they're hanging on now. They're getting the 2 points. I think that's the difference. So you want to look at like some minor forward progress. That's a little bit of it. Then you fast forward to the Vegas game, and where the hell did this game come from? 4-0, beating the top team in the league in their building. And dare I say, that looked like a Barry Trotz kind of win. Yep. Like they looked comfortable, calm with the lead, and it really didn't get hectic to the point where you're like, okay, Vegas is going to storm back here. They kind of just took care of business and won an impressive game.
Yeah, and on our show a couple weeks ago, we talked about how you can kind of bucket every Islanders result this year into 4 different kind of categories, right? There was the feel bad wins. There were a lot of those.
Yes, tons.
There were some normal wins, a ton of losses that we took personally, and then some normal losses. This one kind of created its own category, which was just an absolute dominant win. Because even you look at the game against Vancouver and Colorado, which they won, those were different circumstances. The games were weird. The Avalanche were banged up. This was they go into Vegas. Vegas was 17-4 at home,
right,
until the Islanders played them. And they looked like Vegas, and Vegas looked like the Islanders for a bit there.
Sure.
And they made their breaks count, right? Like, and they did that against Utah too, which we talked about. So like, a lot of times this season, the Islanders will catch a break and everyone exhales, and by the time they're done exhaling, the puck's in the back of the net. And we're like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter that you just killed that penalty off. They just scored. So this time they get the kill on the disallowed goal, and it stands. I was sure that as soon as that puck, the refs took that puck out of the net, I was like, that Vegas is going to win this face-off, and they'll score in like 10 seconds because that's how the season's been going.
Yes.
And then when they
absolutely.
actually did finish the kill, I was like, okay,
Right.
I'm in now. This game is it's working for me, and
Right.
it didn't stop working.
Yeah, it was just like, where did it come from? Like this is what we've literally been waiting half a season for. And then the question becomes, okay, well, is this something that is going to become more normalized throughout the season? Is this something they're going to be able to repeat? Now, granted, they don't get a 4-0 win in Utah, but they play a low-scoring game with a third-string goalie in net in Hogberg. He has a great showing. And you get a 2-1 win in Utah, where first time playing there, and all of a sudden you got your 3-game winning streak. But, they were able to come back in that game. First time, I think, all season where they were down heading into the third and they got a win. Yep. They tie the game early in the third from Nelson, and then Barzell with his heroics with about a minute 20 left in the third. Game-winning goal, and they hang on to it. Because another Islander thing to do would be to give that goal right back.
Yep. I got
before regulation ends.
I got 2 text messages saying they're going to give this thing right back after both goals.
Hilarious.
Yeah, that's just where we're at with this team, and it's just what they do to you. And what I've liked about the Utah game specifically is normal good teams. Like when you can watch a team and you know that they're good, like Washington's been this year, right? The ebbs and flows of a game, they just kind of flatline through them, right? Whether they're down a goal, up a goal, they don't really look too different of a team. The Islanders kind of looked like that in Utah. Like they were playing well. They gave up the first goal. They deflated for a little bit, but they picked themselves up. And I was like, oh, that's not this team. So where is this team, as you said about Vegas, where is this team coming from?
Right.
I thought the same thing about that because they fought back, they come back, and I didn't think they were going to score a goal in that game. It felt like that from the second the puck dropped.
Right.
Connor Ingram was on. He was in good form, and looked like a classic game where the Islanders have a force field in front of the other net. They're not going to score for a goalie, their third string goalie that's putting on a great performance, but they were able to do it. So they proved me wrong, I don't know, 8 or 9 times on this road trip, which has been nice because it feels like this team has been so predictable, which is crazy.
Yeah, and in the most terrible ways.
Right, exactly. From the outside, you're like, this is the most unpredictable, inconsistent team. And I'm like, yeah, well, they're very predictably inconsistent.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, and you noted in the Vegas game where they took advantage of their opportunities, right? And that's something, like, they've played well. They've played hard, I should say, all season. I said this last week with Stefen. Like, this is a team that hasn't given up. They're just not getting the job done, right? And this is an example of a week where now they're getting the job done, where they're actually, burying chances. Like, they get the 2 giveaways, right, against Vegas, and they take advantage, and they become goals. And that's what they've been missing all season. And so, is there something to them saying, we still believe in this team, we still believe in this system, because now we're finally seeing some of the breaks going their way?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Another one was the Pelech save, right? Like that, I was pretty sure that after he made that save, the Islanders would just give up a goal afterwards, because the hockey gods very rarely giveth and giveth to the Islanders. It's always taketh and taketh. So I think that's right. Like, seeing these things stand up, killing a couple penalties. How about that?
Right.
That was nice.
4 for 4 for the week.
I know.
Yeah.
I believe it.
0 for 4 on the power play.
Yeah,
but that's
whatever.
one at a time.
Yeah,
one at a time.
Yeah, we're not asking for the stars here. Just take care of one of them, and we'll worry about the next one later. And like you said, I think that no matter what you say in hockey, like the process, everyone in all sports, right? Trust the process above results. It's such bunk when you're in the actual throes of a season. Like, it's okay to look at from like a big picture. You're looking at spreadsheets or whatever. You want to analyze. You want to, whether you're playing fantasy or betting or whatever. Totally okay with trusting the process. But when you're in the trenches as a fan or as a player or whatever, you need to see results. Otherwise, it's just, what's the point? Like, there was a couple games this season where I just didn't look forward to watching the Islanders. And
understandable.
Like the Maple Leafs game when they lost 2-1, they played well. Didn't care because I don't care about the process anymore. I'm not looking forward to sitting down and watching a team with a good process. I was
starting to think that Optimum was doing fans a favor.
Yeah, right?
By taking away MSG.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. But yeah, well, then I guess now the question is, okay, first 3-game winning streak of the season, that's nice. Is this something we're going to see more of, or is this just a flash in the pan?
Well, the probabilities would tell you it's probably just a flash in the pan, but I want to be proven wrong. I'm going into this home. That's like the timing of this all is both maddening in when it's coming because of the 7-game homestand, the teams that they're playing against right off the jump in the homestand. Like, this 3-game winning streak, this monumental 3-game winning streak was tailor-made to suck you back in because you're looking at the schedule to come up and you're like I have to care about this Ottawa game so much now. That Tuesday night, my Tuesday night is just going to be white knuckle central. I'm sitting on my couch and everyone in my house is going to be mad at me because I'm going to be paying too much attention to the Islanders. And but that's kind of what we wanted. Like if you told me a couple weeks ago that this game would be this homestand would be crucial, I'd be like, I'm signing me up for it. That's where our expectations are with this team. It's a very low hurdle for them to climb, but they did it. But now they have to keep doing it for these 3 games to matter.
Right. No, absolutely. And I guess better to be invested in January than tuned out, right?
Yeah.
So at least there's hockey to watch. So now it's time to dole out experience points. We talked a little bit about that before the show. I prepped you a little bit. So right off the bat, minus 10,000 points to Stefen Rosner for not making it down. I mean, come on, buddy. Get it together. But I think a plus 100,000 to you for coming in. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now a little more seriously on the Islanders side of things, I'm going to give some to Bo Horvat. Yeah, huge game-winning goal in that overtime, and like you said, he finished it, and you felt good about it, which I can't make the same claim. I was waiting for that to be stopped.
Yeah, and I say that, but I feel very good about any time Bo Horvat's on a breakaway or anything, or has a good scoring chance. He just has that trust factor to him, and it hasn't worked out this season. And next time, and I tell myself in my head, next time, just go in with lower expectations. I used to feel that way about Brock Nelson, right? Like Nelson coming down the wing, I'm like, this is in the back of the net. I can start celebrating now.
Sure.
But you've had to dial that back too. But yeah, Horvat's been great. You know what I was saying about like the ebbs and flows of a game, right? Like in the Islanders, you want to see a team that kind of just flatlines through it. I feel like Horvat's that kind of player this entire season. Would you like to see him score more goals? Sure. But like he's been such a good 200-foot player the entire season. It doesn't matter who his line mates are at all. I'm pretty sure he played with Cale Muller at some point in this season. Like it's just they're just rotating these guys in and out, right? Like it's and he doesn't change at all. He does not change his game. I feel like he can be both your best scoring center and your best checking center. And that's a rare thing to have. So yeah, not only just for this 3-game winning streak has begun, but I think he's just been such a you could set your clock to him.
Sure.
Horvat this season, and that's been nice. I mean, he's been a great Islander.
So plus 687 points for Bo Horvat.
That sounds like a good. How much money did he have to sue Plandome for his? He had like a construction lawsuit right away. Like as soon as he moved to Long Island,
he became I forgot about that.
He became an Islander. We'll give him however much money was settled in that lawsuit. He can have that many experience points.
That is perfect. So that'll do it for experience points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd, unplug your game. And with that, we're going to take a break. We're going to go on the line with Chris Peters when we get back. We'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is now time for On the Line, presented by FloHockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And joining us right now from FloHockey is Mr. Chris Peters. Chris, thanks a lot for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, pleasure to have you. So right off the bat, why don't you tell us a little bit about FloHockey before we dive into the New York Islanders prospects?
Yeah, sure. So FloHockey's been around for a bit now, but certainly getting a lot more involved in a lot of the hockey that the people that are fans of NHL teams really care about, including the AHL. We're the streaming home of the AHL, the ECHL. A lot of college and junior hockey as well. We also have the American broadcast rights to the SHL, so the Swedish Hockey League, select games throughout the year. So it's been a lot of fun. And then on top of that, obviously, we do a lot of prospect coverage, covered the World Juniors. And so there's full suite of editorial coverage, of video coverage. We have our podcast called Up the Prospects Podcast with me and Cam Robinson. So we've got a lot of things going on, and hopefully a lot more to come. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Sounds great, Chris. So let's talk a little Islanders prospects here. Obviously, United States, the big gold medal champions over at the World Junior Championship. A couple of guys in the Islanders system who had some standout performances. Danny Nelson, Cole Eiserman. Maybe you could just start by talking about those guys. Obviously, again, good performance there. But what does this mean, right? You see, for me as a fan, I'm watching and I say, okay, great. You have X guy, Y guy performing well, whether it's in juniors, the WJCs, whatever the case may be. And I'm always asking the question, how is this going to translate into the NHL? So do you happen to have maybe a potential trajectory for these guys and how they might be able to factor into the Islanders lineup in the future?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of what you see at the World Juniors. I think it's hard to necessarily project out. It helps, I think it helps, but we've seen plenty of guys light it up the World Juniors, not amount to much, and guys that did nothing at the World Juniors become superstars, and guys that didn't even make the team. So you always have to be careful about, in terms of what you're reading into everything. But at the same time, the two guys in question with Danny Nelson and Cole Eiserman, they were both very critical pieces for Team USA in very different ways. I think that any Islanders fan that did watch the World Juniors probably saw that the ice time differential was pretty significant between the two players. Cole Eiserman kind of goes from a top six forward into more of a 13th forward and power play specialist. And I think, one thing that's important to note is, Danny Nelson is a returning player. Cole Eiserman was a first-year player. And on top of that, that year difference, it really does make a difference in terms of a player's readiness and everything else. But Danny Nelson was named one of the three best players for Team USA in this tournament. He was a key piece of their gold medal victory. Scored a goal against Canada in that big game. He was on the penalty kill. You'd see him on the second power play unit as well in the bumper. And, so there's a lot there. I think he got such rave reviews from the people at USA Hockey there in terms of a guy that does all the little things well. He started on a line with Eiserman and Trevor Connolly, and then they eventually morphed that line a little bit. It kind of got moved around, and then it was Oliver Moore, with him, and then they kind of had a rotating cast there. But Danny Nelson basically was the number 2 center for Team USA in the entire tournament, and was critical to their success. He ends up with 6 points in the end, and it's funny because the goal, the point differential versus the time on ice differential, and Cole Eiserman did have 7 points in the tournament. He had that big insurance goal against Canada. He scored a big goal in the quarterfinals as well, or the semifinals. Yeah, quarterfinals. They all run together. But either way, it was a really impressive showing from him. And so I think that was, basically he was used more on the power play. The thing that I think that was most important about Cole's tournament was that he bought in, and he wasn't going to be a top 6 forward. They tried it. It didn't really work. 5-on-5, they would get kind of pinned in. He's not as good off the puck. That's all known about him. But what needed to be understood is, how do you fit into a role? And he was asked to play a role, and he played it gladly. And he ends up, basically becoming part of a gold medal team because he bought into what they were doing. So, I think in the long term, Danny Nelson is probably a depth center at the next level, potential to have a top 6, really pie in the sky ceiling in terms of where that's going. I think that his he's not a dynamic player, but he's a very smart player. He does a lot of the little things well. And then Cole Yzerman, I think that if he's going to make it, he's got to make it as a top 6 scorer. He is a goal scorer. He's not a guy that is going to give you, he's not going to be on your penalty kill. He's not going to be a great player away from the puck. I don't think that you try to, force him to be something that he's not. You draft him because he's an elite goal scorer. And, we saw that at times. I mean, he has an NHL shot right now, and it has that high-end goal scoring ability. So, I mean, long term, he's still got a ways to go. I think there's a lot of development time ahead of him. I think that he's he should be in school for at least 2, possibly 3 years at Boston University before you really start considering him. I mean, the fact of the matter is he plays for Jay Pandolfo, who, Lou Lamoriello is going to know real well from his New Jersey Devils days. And Pandolfo was a Selke Trophy winner. So, if anybody's going to be able to get the most out of Cole Yzerman away from the puck, it's probably Jay Pandolfo. So I think there's a real bright future there. And again, I always remind people the World Juniors is not about what you're going to be in 5 years. It's about what you can do right now. And in both cases, they delivered in a very significant way for Team USA.
Yeah, Jay Pandolfo, Islander legend, Jay Pandolfo. Chris, the Islanders farm system has been much derided over the past couple of years because they have tried to win, much to the chagrin of a lot of people in hockeydom. But it does feel like there's a little bit of a shift, right, in the point of view from not just Islander fans, but also the media that covers prospects, that maybe this farm system was a little bit better than people gave it credit for with the growth of Danny Nelson. Quinn Finley looks like he's on the right path as well. Cole Yzerman obviously being drafted and fused, and also Isaiah George, who wasn't, I don't think, high up on many people's prospect rankings, but has looked like a natural so far in his brief NHL career. So do you think that the kind of overall big picture view of the Islanders farm system is starting to change a bit?
I think to a certain extent. I mean, the biggest thing is that until you're never going to be among the top 10, 15 teams until you're, hitting on more picks. And the fact of the matter is there's still a lot of questions about what these guys are all ultimately going to be later on. I mean, I think like Danny Nelson to me is a surefire NHL player. I think that he's going to be a guy that meets his potential. That's pretty critical. And then there's a lot of guys in the system that I think have potential, and we'll see kind of where they end up over time. The fact of the matter is they don't have that top end guy. Like Cole Yzerman's a really good player. But when we talk about top end guys, we're talking about Celebrini, Michkov, the guys that are rookies right now. And I don't think that he's in that mix. That's not to say that he's not a very good prospect. It's just a matter, is he going to be a superstar player? I think, he could be a 30 to 40 goal scorer. That makes you a star in the NHL in most cases, especially if you score 30 consistently. But at the same time, it's, is he going to be a top tier star? And I think that's, kind of remains to be seen. And then a lot of the guys, Quinn Finley, really good player, obviously leading the NCAA in scoring right now. But at the same time, like I think he's probably kind of a mid-tier prospect. There's good signs there. There's good progression there. I think that he's also shown over the years that he's a little more versatile than maybe we gave him credit for pre-draft. But there's just a lot of guys in the system that you're just kind of gonna have to wait and see on. And that's just the way it is. One guy that I think is kind of an intriguing prospect that we saw a little bit of at the World Juniors was Marcus Gidloff, who essentially was Sweden's number 2 goalie. They ended up playing him in the bronze medal game, and he gave them a chance in that bronze medal game. And so I do think that that's a guy that has a higher upside than maybe his draft stock would suggest. But when we look at the kind of what the guys that are currently playing in Bridgeport, the guys that are there, I mean, it's to me a very middle of the road slightly below average prospect system. So I mean, I wouldn't get super excited yet until they start picking higher, which, like you look at these teams, they're kind of in the mushy middle, and it's a really tough place to actually build something out of. And I feel like that's kind of where the Islanders are and have been. But certainly guys like Jeffries, Finley, Yzerman, Nelson, George, Gidloff, there are more players there that you feel like, hey, there's something there. So I think that there is improvement in the system. It's just, how much of it there is, I think it still remains to be seen.
So, Chris, to expand further on Isaiah George, right? Talk about how he obviously makes the team a lot sooner than we thought, thanks to a lot of early injuries here for the season for the Islanders. And now he's played. It looks like he's staying. He's not going anywhere. He's looked very well. Now, if you compare maybe what you expected from him before he set foot on NHL ice compared to now and what he has been doing, has his ceiling perhaps changed? Does he look like he might end up being a better player than maybe he first looked like, or do you think he's kind of like exactly where he would be?
I think it's always tough when you see a guy make it earlier. You have to understand the circumstance, and I think there have been many cases where a prospect arrived far quicker than anybody expected because of the circumstance. My projection on him hasn't necessarily changed. I think he's probably a long-term bottom pairing defenseman. And the fact of the matter is that he is currently playing the fact that he's there now and has succeeded and has been able to be a serviceable player at this stage of his career is really intriguing. It does give you the thing is, it's always hard to kind of judge, how much are these players going to develop in the situation that they're in. I think in the ideal circumstance, Isaiah George is still, in the AHL getting reps as a top 4 defenseman at that level. But I think if he can play a role, and if guys prove that they're ready and they can do it, then I think that that's fine. But I think in terms of long-term projection, when a guy arrives in the NHL, doesn't necessarily mean much for the long-term projection, because I think if you look at the Islanders, what else were they going to do, right? What were the other options for them? And so that's the thing that you kind of have to temper excitement about. Oh, well, he made it in his first year pro. There are plenty of guys that are career AHL players that made it as a first year and got minutes. And so that's the thing. So I would say, I still think that he's probably long-term a 5, maybe a 6. And then but that's the thing. If you're an everyday 5 or a 6, you're one of the best players in the world. So sure. It's not a slight really. It's just more, he's not, I don't see him as a top 4 option.
Yeah, he seems to be playing that game too really well with Mayfield, especially just a pretty safe, composed game, which is what you want to see out of guys in your bottom pair. A couple of guys in Bridgeport that it seems like, we Islander fans, as we talked about, right? We've had the prospect pool near the bottom of the basically across the board, right, consensus rankings for a while, but there were a couple of shining or bright spots, right, in years past. Matthew Maggio, William Dufour. Now it seemed last year was like Alex Jeffries. Outside of Jeffries, the other 2 guys seem to have stalled a bit. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen out of Bridgeport, which has been really bad? I think they had 1 win at home.
Awful.
Yeah, going into this week.
Well,
so
they won today.
Yeah,
okay.
Today.
That's good. That's good
go.
news.
1 game winning streak for them too.
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. I think a strong AHL team always helps an NHL team in some way. And when you don't have one, it doesn't necessarily, there are ways to kind of fix things, but you have to have something there. And I would say Jeffries in particular here, that's a player that I've been pretty high on for quite a long time. Goes to college straight out of prep school, has a really solid career, becomes a real star at Merrimack, and allows them to kind of take a step as a program. They don't do it without him. Then he gets to the AHL, and I think that what we're seeing from him now is he's figuring it out. He's figuring out how to be a pro. He's figuring out the day-to-day. And the fact is right now he is still playing well on a bad team. And that counts for something. And I think especially it counts for something at his age and at his experience level, because really this is his first year of being a full-time pro. The good news is that, hey, you got some veteran guys that can kind of help keep you stable. Chris Terry, Brian Pino have done a good job of that. And I think people always kind of look at those veteran players as, well, they're not going to help us, so what do we really care about them? I was like, those are the guys that are going to make the Alex Jeffreys of the world better. But I mean, you kind of look through and you look up and down the lineup there, and it's, a lot of guys that haven't taken the step. A lot of guys, I don't think they've taken a step back. I just think, it's kind of a circumstantial situation where they just haven't been as good. But, I think that to see what Jeffries has done this year is like, okay, that's a guy that we can hang our hat on. That's a guy that we think is going to help us soon. In terms of the rest of the group, I mean, it's really hard to say. I haven't watched Bridgeport a ton. I have watched them this year. I haven't watched, repeatedly of them, but, so it's hard for me to judge fully. But the fact of the matter is, every time you have, when you have a season like this in the AHL, it's not great. It's not great for those prospects. It's not great for what you're trying to build for your NHL roster. And I think that there are teams that have taken great care to make their AHL teams better. And I think that's something that probably still needs to happen in Bridgeport over the long term, especially as you're starting to get more of these players. Because, I don't know if Danny Nelson is going to go straight to the NHL out of Notre Dame. I don't know if he's going to go, I can't tell you that Cole Iserman's going to go straight to the NHL out of Boston University. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you have to do. But I thought this before FloHockey was the official streaming provider for the AHL. But I've always thought that the AHL team health is a very good indicator of where you're going. And when you're like the Islanders and you're kind of in the middle, you feel like, what is the next step from here? It's really hard to get out of that before, if things are, kind of at the middle, at the top, and towards the bottom in the AHL, it's not a good situation.
For sure, Chris. And I guess last one for me, if you're just looking at the Islanders, I suppose, prospect pool from top to bottom, I think I know the answer to this question already is going to be everything. But what would you say the Islanders need most to kind of help bump up that pool and, get it higher up the ranks? Like, Mike was mentioning before, they've been at the bottom for a while now with Lamoriello trading away a lot of draft picks, obviously trying to stay competitive. What do they need in that system to kind of help, streamline that system through into the NHL to have some more success there as well?
Yeah, unquestionably for me, the biggest need that they have as an organization is probably on the blue line. I think that's where you can start taking more of a step, and there's not a lot in the system at the moment that's going to help you right now or in the very near future. And you kind of look at the NHL blue line that they have now, and then you look at that next tier. And like I said, when you have an Isaiah George playing, and again, this is not to slate him because I think you got to give him a ton of credit for the job that he's done, but it's just that there isn't really a lot that's coming next. Now, there are some fascinating players. Jesse Pulkkinen, who was drafted last year, he's a big dude. He's got some real skill to him as well. He hasn't scored this year at the rate, thought he might take a step offensively this year. Hasn't necessarily happened, but I think he's an exciting guy. So I'd say that's, at least an example of something that's there. But I think this team really could benefit from that next defenseman. You look at throughout the different systems, and Chicago's a rebuilding team. They've put a lot of focus on drafting Kevin Korchinski 7th overall. They got Artem Levshinov 2nd overall last year. They've got some help coming on the blue line. I just think that it helps you there. And like I said, Gidloff is a high upside. You never really know with goalies, but he's a high upside guy. You've got guys like Yzerman, Nelson, Jeffries, others at forward. The thing is that this year, let's say you do end up picking wherever you end up picking, it's not a great year to be looking for a defenseman. So so that there's the help doesn't necessarily come right away. I mean, You also look too, we've seen more young defensemen traded, like guys like Bowen Byram and different, they end up moving. Jamie Drysdale, there are these kind of trades that you could potentially get younger on the blue line. So that's another opportunity. It just kind of depends on where you're at as an organization. But I think as I look at the prospect system top to bottom, I feel like the most holes exist on the blue line currently.
Gotcha. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your time and hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Take care. All right, folks, that was Chris Peters of FloHockey, and that will do it for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more, about Tovi Hockey. The innovative hockey technology company is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air Blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology. With superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic crossbeam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot, Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to ToviHockey.com to check out their great selections of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey, stronger, faster, superior. And now we're going to take one more break. When we come back, it's going to be time for What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. The train rolls on right into Center Station Bar and Grill, presenting What's on Tap. We look ahead at the Islanders' schedule. 3 games on the docket heading into this week, and they're all at home because we know they have a 7-game homestand coming up, and it may just well make or break this season for the Islanders. So, starting on Tuesday versus Ottawa, 7:30 p.m., chasing the Ottawa Senators right now in the standings. What do you see in that game, Mike?
Yeah, it's a huge game. Ottawa won again tonight, and I think this will be 3 and 4 for them. So a little bit of a schedule advantage for the Islanders, even with them coming back from the West Coast. But this is, the Islanders have completely abandoned or given up the privilege of having, moral victories or
that's
being able
over.
to squander any of these
100%.
points. And so is it a true must-win game? No, but is it for me and you and everyone watching and listening's mental health? Is it a must-win game? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to bed feeling one bit of good if they blow this game. So they've got no choice but to win this one. And we're gonna be saying that a lot about this homestand.
I was just about to say it doesn't change on Thursday. Philadelphia comes to town. In fact, they play Philadelphia 3 times in January.
Yeah, it's weird.
2 at home, and they close the month in Philadelphia.
And that's the 3rd team that they've had in a 2 or 3 week span where the NHL is just like throwing them at us 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's very odd. Like, I know they're doing the whole 4 nations thing, but like those 2 weeks shouldn't throw off the schedule that much.
It's very strange, and but I mean, those kind of compact head to heads do make for good theater, at least in the the second and third game. And once again, they don't have any choice. You got to win these games. You got to get 4 points from. In a weird way, the third game we're going to talk about is the one where if you want to take a night off, against the team that, even though it should be 3-2 points, go by all means if you take care of business in these other ones. But that also includes the games on the other side of that Sharks game.
Yes, we've seen them play the Sharks previously when Anthony Duclair was a Shark.
Yes.
And that didn't go so well. What did they blow, a 3-4 goal lead in that game?
Yeah, it was 4-1 with like 6 minutes left.
Yeah, that was brutal against a team that was tanking, essentially. Yeah, bad news. So they want to reverse those fortunes, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, look, we're probably going to be saying this all season until they just find themselves way out of it. If they do, every game now is important because you have teams like Ottawa, Montreal picking up their game now, where literally they're going to have to play leapfrog every night. Now, some teams might fall out, sure, they will eventually, but you just don't know who's going to catch fire now on any given basis. The fact that you have all these teams bunched up, Ottawa, Detroit, Philadelphia, the Rangers, I'm probably leaving out a team or two here, but Columbus sitting in a spot right now. Yeah, unbelievable. So, I mean, this is really the time where, like you said, no more throwaway games. They have to capitalize on their opportunities, finish their opportunities, maybe pick up a couple more shutouts like Sorokin did, right?
That'd be nice.
I think that was the second shutout of the season?
Yeah, something like that. And second since last November or something crazy.
Yeah.
So
insane.
Yeah, that would be nice. But it just doesn't go like according to plan with this team, as we know. And these long homestands really scare me for some reason, because it is an opportunity, especially with the schedule that they're putting in front of us. The weird thing about that Sharks game too from last year was they blow that game, went to bed real mad. I think Dan and I recorded an emergency podcast after it, which we've done like 3 times in 10 years of doing this. But then they won 6 in a row, so like they did respond. And I'm not looking for that now. What I'm looking for them is that this is the response to what's been a pretty down spiraling season, and they can look at the teams they're playing, Ottawa and Philadelphia, and like you said, Montreal, Columbus, etc. As we can do what these teams did. All you need to do is win 6 of 7, and you're basically in the playoffs, right? So just go do that. Just go do it.
Easy enough.
Yeah, it should be easy
there
enough.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, they're halfway there right now, right? They get 3. If they get 3 more, they might at least be on the edge, because that's the thing too. You look at the win last night; they had to win that game.
Right.
If they lose that game, they're 7 points back now, which is crazy. So they're just literally trying to tread water to stay within reaching distance of a playoff spot. Before, it was okay, they're right there, maybe a win tomorrow, and they're in a spot. They were kind of like right on the edge there. Now they've fallen back a little bit more. So if they let that happen anymore, then we're really going to start talking about draft picks.
Yeah, and the other teams have all kind of got their act together. It's taken some coaches to lose their job in some cases. But if you look down the standings and the streaks right now, right, you've got a 6-game winning streak or 7-game winning streak for Detroit. Columbus is on fire. Pittsburgh had their up, but they're coming back down a little bit now. Ottawa has been streaking one way and then the other. So it's really, and now of course I don't even want to talk about what's going on with the Rangers, but it should be there in front of them, but this team is just not taking the bull by its horns in whether
Certainly
that be
not.
in terms of like the big picture of the season or a game. And this goes back, Dan and I always joke that this is really game 198 of the 2022-2023 Islanders, right? Because it's been the same thing over and over and over again with this team in these seasons. True. And these things should be so hard to replicate. That's why it's so crazy that this team is doing this over and over again. And the 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, 2024, 2025 Islanders have shown us that they don't take these opportunities until like the last second. So they might be like, look, it's not April yet. Like we're good. Yeah, we're not gonna put our pedal down. We got kids 2 weeks at home now. We got all the kids, and Christmas just ended. We're taking down decorations, maybe a couple christenings to go to.
Sure,
stuff like that.
yeah,
It's Long Island, and their dads. Like this is what they do. So
they'll do it after the Four Nations tournament.
Yeah, come on. We'll see what happens with Brock and Kyle, and we'll sort it out.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny because it's true. It has been almost like watching the same team for the last few years. The only thing that's even crazier to me is the special teams. Yeah, just how pitifully awful they've been.
And it's taken the kind of the mainstream hockey media till now to figure out that the Islanders are 32nd in both penalty kill and power play, which has been we're like sitting over here, and the Islanders don't get the coverage that a lot of other teams do, of course. But we're like sitting over here being like, yeah, there's a reason why this team is in the mushy middle or struggling to put wins together, is because every time the ref's hand goes up, something bad happens for the Islanders one way or another.
Yes.
So like this team needs to play at 5-on-5 until further notice. But maybe, as we talked about, they did go 4 for 4 on the penalty kill over the week. Right. In my mind, that means they're due to not have a good night. Just like when they went
if you look at the numbers,
right? And they went 2 for 2 against, or not 2 for 2, but they scored 2 power play goals against Ottawa, and that's the last time they scored a power play goal. So they were due for this.
Right.
Two is way too many in one game.
Well, to swing it back into the schedule here, I certainly don't think any of us sat down and looked at January and said this was going to be a critical stretch of games playing against Ottawa, Philadelphia, and San Jose to start January, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, think about where you were last night as those final 80 seconds came off, right? Like you're watching a game against Utah in January, and it's life or death.
And And now that you bring that up, one thing I still can't stand that this team does is how they play the 6-on-5. Though I don't know, I'm sure you noticed it, but just
sag back.
Oh my God, like leaving the point, like here you go, fellas,
shoot it,
do whatever, shoot the puck. We'll scramble for it and cross our fingers and hope that they don't score. It's unbelievable.
Every 6-on-5 goal gets scored in the same way. It feels like, right? Like it's a shot from the point off a shin pad. Usually it's
or
like,
a rebound.
Yeah, Chris Kreider's like ear goes in the net, right? The Rangers score on 6-on-5 all the time,
right?
And the Islanders, to me, are the only team in the NHL that I watch, and we watch a ton, that does this.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
And it hasn't worked. Like, so if it was working, I'd be like, by all means, put 5 guys on the red line if that's what's been working, but it doesn't work.
It worked last night, but like I was waiting for the goal. Like, forget about the fact that they've been letting it up all season, sure, but just watching how far, like you had everybody down at least at the hash marks,
and they look like that's obviously coached into them because none of them are like pointing to someone being like, no, you got to go pressure them. It's like Palmieri, Siplikov, that line at first. So they were all doing what they were told to do.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I don't know why they don't pressure the points. It worked out last night, but I'm not sure that's a recipe for success going forward. But that is going to do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food, drinks, Isles games, and live events at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now it's time to talk about some heroes for the hero of the week. So, Mike, we're going to get you involved in that. Successful week, the best week of the season for the Islanders. 3-game winning streak. Who do you got?
I'm going to go maybe off the board a little bit with Ryan Pulock because coming into the season, I was kind of skeptical of the Islanders' blue line just as a whole because it's really made up of like 4. Maybe number 2, 3, 4 guys, right?
Sure.
Middle pair guys. Yeah. And you want somebody to step up and announce themselves as a number 1. We all wanted it to be Dobson. It wasn't.
Right.
Maybe it was going to be Pulock. He seemed to be the guy that was getting leaned on the most with the injuries. And it just hasn't gone well for him this season until the Bruins game. Like in the past 3 games, he's looked like Ryan Pulock of like 2021. Really, really good,
Glimpses.
really aggressive. Yeah, it's been nice. So I want to give him his due because I think a lot of the fan base has been on his case for a middling season. Perhaps he was just still hungover from that crazy wedding that he threw in Venice over the summer. Like, and it's finally he's shaking it off.
You never know.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at that thing and you can understand why. But he's been really good the past few games. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come. And maybe it was just getting a healthy Pelican back, and that has helped him.
You never know, but it's a great pick. I'm going to go a little more traditional, looking at the Stars. I went with Matt Barzal. Got the big late game winner last night against Utah. He's got points in 5 straight games. He's starting to look a little bit more like himself. He was kind of slow out of the gate at the start of the season, slow out of the gate coming back from injuries, and obviously this is a guy who this team needs to be performing well in order to win, and now he's looking real good with Anders Lee and Brock Nelson. Lee looks like a reborn player completely. We've talked a lot about that on this show, how excellent he's been, and Barzal's been a part of that since he's come back, so Matt Barzal's my guy.
Yeah, that line has been it's been something I feel like Islander fans have been like bubbling with and be like, maybe they should just throw Barzal with Nelson at some point and see how it works. And then it's like, it's a little crazy to take away those for them from other lines. And it's worked better than I think anyone could have imagined. And Lee has helped so much, but Barzal's been the driver of that line. He's been so good with the puck on his stick. You maybe want to see him shoot a little bit more. He was shooting last night, but it was still not enough. There were a couple of times where you're like, man, you're like the only player in the NHL that does not shoot that puck.
Now that Josh Bailey's retired.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you did all the hard work and you don't finish it. But he's been awesome the past couple of games as well. Last night, I think, was unequivocally the best game of his season.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Yeah.
He was excellent.
And a huge goal. It was nice to score one of those goals for a change.
And it was pretty looking too. Nice little turnaround. But then you look at the clock and you're like, man, there's so much hockey left. Yep. There's a minute 20. In the Islanders world, that's at least 3 hours of hockey.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But, these are 2 guys that contributed for a winning week, and now we see where it goes when they come home. But that's going to do it for Hero of the Week. And now I'm going to tell you a little more about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we go to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den,
with Jake the Snake.
That's right, folks. It's time for the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis. Jake, how we doing, bud?
Doing great.
Team glasses tonight.
Yeah, team glasses, you know.
Yeah, bud. All right.
We didn't coordinate that, by the way.
We did not.
But yeah, look, it just happened. I mean, I'm doing good.
Yeah?
3-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm
How's it make
saying
you
that
feel?
for the first time since in January is the first time we could say that this year.
2025, off to a great start.
Crazy. Yeah, so starting the year right.
What do you got for us, pal?
Yeah, so Saturday.
Yes.
That is
Yes, same
yesterday.
day. Yep,
Okay.
same day.
Yep, sorry. Got my days a little scrambled here. Went to the Alumni Classic.
Okay.
Islanders Rangers. This was, I believe, the first year they did it at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, used to do it over in Northwell.
Yeah, so great experience. I mean, that's
Okay.
always such a fun time. That was actually my first time going to the Garden. I know, crazy.
Yeah. Wow. What'd you think, buddy?
UBS is better.
Right answer.
I'll give them it though. The Garden's awesome. Like, that was a very cool experience too. They had everybody in the lower bowl last night too.
Okay,
So,
that's cool.
yeah, very cool game. We got to see some older Islanders players out there, and then I mean the star of the game, who could be playing right now, Cal Clutterbuck.
Pascal. Yeah.
Pascal with a hat trick in the
Wow.
game.
Okay.
Granted, I know he obviously was playing in the NHL last year, and some of these guys he's
Probably
playing
in the best
against.
shape on the ice.
Yeah, I mean,
for
some
sure.
of these guys haven't been on the ice in 15 years in the NHL. So,
He was still training to play in the NHL this year.
no, I was saying to my buddies I was with, I was like, I think he's trying to play for a contract.
You never know.
But yeah, he gets the hat trick, and you know, a win over the Rangers is always nice, especially
Yeah.
the first time they're doing it at the Garden. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Definitely recommend if you haven't gone. It's definitely a fun day to go to.
I saw Lundqvist was between the pipes, which is pretty cool. Any other standouts for the Rangers? I didn't really look to see who played.
Yeah, Derek Stepan was there.
Okay.
Brian Boyle, he actually, I believe,
Okay,
so
he's local
Stepan
these
scored
days.
the first, Boyle scored the second. Drawing a blank. But yeah, there was definitely stars on both teams. We saw Radek Martinek.
There you go.
which
There's
is
no way he
nice.
wasn't showing up.
Yeah, so
He's
he
an
actually, the third goal for Cal was a shot from the point that Radek shot at him.
Okay.
Tipped it in. But yeah, it was cool. Kevin Poylan was in net.
Oh, yeah, Kevin Poulin.
Yeah.
We remember that guy. He's a weird Islander,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he was. We did an episode on Kevin Poulin, and he actually, the Weird Islander episode you just recorded with us, him and Robin Leonard had a run-in once. Remember?
Oh, they sure did. We talked about it.
Crossing the red line. So, yeah, it was good for Kevin Poulin to beat Henrik Lundqvist. And, yeah, that's... I
Don't get to say that often.
Yeah,
You could finally say
yeah,
that.
exactly. and yeah, when the Radek showing up, come on, he's just part of the furniture with the Islanders. It's just so great.
Yes, he is.
I love that man. So good to see him out there. He looks great, too. Like,
Yeah.
Radek Martinek has gotten... he wasn't, look, I love Radek Martinek. He wasn't the most handsome player when he was playing. Handsome guy now,
Glowing
though.
up?
Really good looking dude.
That's
You know,
hilarious.
you know who was flying around on the ice last
that?
night? Rob Schremp.
Robbie
Fast.
Shrimp. Okay.
He was moving quicker than anybody else on that ice last night.
That's awesome. And I
Yeah.
think he's living in Europe, so they must have flew him over. He flew in. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was probably just an
Interesting.
awesome experience for those guys to get back out and play on the Garden ice. I mean,
Okay.
especially for the Rangers guys, but then the Islanders guys too. You know, doing it at Northwell, but now you're back on a rink that you've played in many a times.
I don't think he played last year. I was surprised to see Alexei Yashin join the mix.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
bubble
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
turtleneck, but the bubble.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
No turtleneck.
Yeah.
see
No
the
no
turtleneck.
turtleneck.
That was his signature.
Yeah.
know.
His hockey days might be a little past him.
Oh, really?
I don't believe it.
And I am impressed. I think this is the second year in a row Pierre Turgeon went down.
Yes.
I think that's
he
great
actually
that
got
he's
an
back
assist
involved.
too.
Yeah.
He shot one off of Lundqvist that Cal knocked home. So
Cal's
Turgeon to Clutterbuck.
I'm still waiting for Ziggy to make the appearance.
know.
Yeah, that one
Where
was
is that man?
There's a
What is
couple-
that man doing
yeah.
these days?
You know, we saw the one I've been waiting for forever is Dublowitz, right? And we saw him with the little, congratulations on making the playoffs from whatever oil rig he was on.
That's right.
Last year,
That's right.
Hopefully he comes to an alumni night because I just feel like these guys, I don't think guys of that era realize just how beloved they are because the team didn't have success by regular success standards, right? They don't win playoff rounds or whatever. But by our standards, I'm like, you guys were Stanley Cup champions.
You could do a whole show on that season.
Yeah.
All the things that happened, the players involved. I mean, up, down, left, and right. I'm about to get into it, but I'm resisting.
Yeah.
But you could definitely do a whole show. Well, Jake, you went to the alumni game. That's great. Any takes on what the Islanders did this week?
Yeah, so I actually saw a very interesting stat on Twitter today.
I love those.
Are you guys familiar with Jay Fresh Hockey?
We are. I am.
Yeah, so
I'm
he does
sure
like
he
the
is.
scorecards and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
He has
yeah.
his own stat system. So according to that account, the Islanders are tied for 10th in the league in 5v5 expected goals against per 60. So I know we talk about the defense not really playing well this year, but that was a crazy stat to see. I wouldn't
Sure.
expect that. I mean, obviously, that doesn't factor in the penalty kill or the 6-on-5s that they always give up.
Yep.
But
Right.
it was nice to see an actual cool metric,
A positive stat.
a positive stat about the Islanders defense this year.
Those are rare to find this season.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
definitely are.
And
All right.
they're more frustrating than anything. 'Cause I'm like, like you're. It looks good. It's supposed to be good. This is telling me it should be good. But as you said, it's the fringe stuff, the penalty kill, the power play, and the 6-on-5 stuff is they're making their own
So
problems.
only 5-on-5 from here on out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. No more penalty. Well, they did a good job against Boston. They didn't take any penalties
Yeah,
against
to
Boston.
add to the bizarreness of this entire thing, it's they don't take any penalties and they don't get any power plays. It's absurd how little
It
refs
is
get involved
very
in Islander games.
strange.
And another thing that I don't think anyone's picked up on yet.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks they'll be like, "Wow, Islander games are really clean, huh?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange, and we've said it multiple times in the show too. Is just imagine if they did take an average amount of penalties, how much further buried
Horrifying stuff.
they'd be in the standings if they actually were a dirtier team or undisciplined team. Right? It's wild. But Jake, great takes, buddy. Love
you.
it. Maybe we'll have another winning streak to talk about next week.
That would be great.
All right, so that'll do it for the Snake Den. Now it's time for Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Ed,
Yeah.
Jay, fellas, how we doing?
We're here.
Okay, what does that mean?
No, nothing. You know.
How's Happy Jay? I heard you wrote a song about him.
Yeah, it's basically you could write it. You could imagine in your head. It's basically the Happy Days theme, but with
Monday,
you just
Tuesday,
Happy Jay. Tuesday,
Wednesday.
and especially Sunday. He's Happy Jay.
Happy Jay. All right, how's the chat looking today?
You know, it's a little varied. It's a little
Okay,
varied actually.
varied,
But you know,
okay.
oddly not optimistic, even though you know a
Well,
3-game
you
winning
know
streak.
what?
And I get it.
Yeah.
We all
I
get
think
it.
that's the appropriate response.
exactly.
But you know, let's start off with a Devils fan in chat.
Hey,
Jay
let's
Snow,
do it.
who adds that
Welcome.
they just recently got swept by San Jose, which sympathetic. You know, we've
tough.
all lost to San Jose once in a while
This
when
is
we
true.
shouldn't have.
Right.
He just wants to know how we feeling about making a playoff run.
Well, Steph and I talk about that every week. Mike, let's get your take on that.
Yeah, I think right now I feel it's very possible, and I'm believing in it, and I've tried,
Okay,
and
you
I've had that inner monologue with myself for the past month to be like, do not take the first piece of bait that this team throws at you, and here I am doing it. It's a
Right.
3-game winning streak.
You got the hat on, you got
Yeah,
the sweater
I'm ready.
on.
I'm all back in. I got, I've waited for people to honk at me on Sunrise Highway, and no one's doing it because I guess maybe they're not as excited about a 3-game winning streak as I am. But I mean, I think, here, I'll put it this way. I think we're going to wake up mid-March, Ides of March, and be like, this team is 3 points out of a playoff spot and so in the mix that it's going to make you sick.
It's what they do.
Yep.
It's what this team does.
We were talking a bit about a farm system earlier. And Zeb wants to know, why do the Islanders seem to not be hitting a lot in their picks? Is it scouting, development? Where are the diamonds in the rough or that high-end prospect? I know you touched a little bit about Isaiah George. I don't know about a diamond in the rough, but...
Yeah, Stefan and I actually talked about this, I think, a couple shows ago. This came up, talking about how the draft picks have kind of been, mediocre, I would say, right? A lot of misses. And even going back to the Garth Snow era, you look at guys like Michael Del Cole getting picked in the top 5. What was his name? Griffin Reinhardt, who ended up turning into Matt Barzell indirectly. But yeah, guys that, go top 5 or even just in the first round and not panning out. And I think, and maybe this is a little bit of a cop-out, but I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's a combination of the scouting staff, a combination of the development team. And, the funny, Bridgeport hasn't been good for a long time, but now they're just super bad.
Yeah.
Now you look at that and you look at the conversation we just had with Chris Peters, and he puts an emphasis on it as well. Are the Islanders currently just derailing the progress of those players down there right now because they're not having success? Because, no matter what level of hockey you play at, you want to feel good about yourself.
Right.
You want to feel confident, right? And that you're achieving something. If you're going out on the ice almost every night, getting, losing to Wilkes-Barre Penguins or whoever it is, that's going to weigh on you, and that's going to change your mentality when you finally are trying to get a crack in the NHL. So I think you have to hold all parties guilty, and of course it starts at the top with Lou Lamoriello, because he's the guy who's picking the staff and then on down, right? And you have Chris's son over there who's been in charge even before Lou got here. And I'm not saying it's all Bridgeport's fault, but I mean, it's something you can certainly hone in on and be like, that's a problem,
Right.
right? I feel like they've done a little bit better drafting because I've been pleasantly surprised hearing about guys like Danny Nelson now.
Right.
Cole Eisman a little easier, first round pick and all that. I think Danny Nelson was too, though, right?
He was a second
round pick. Okay,
yeah.
second round pick. You hear about Quinn Finley, so it sounds like they're starting to hit a little more, and we still have to find out what happens with those guys. But I think all in all, it's just been a rough go with the drafting. Even look at Oliver Wahlstrom. That was Lou Lamoriello's first draft. Hit on Dobson, more or less.
Yep.
So whiffed on Wahlstrom.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think probably for me, Bridgeport, because this is the most tangible thing, is probably the biggest problem, right? Like it's it's like the same red flags that we all warn people about. Oh, just rebuild. Like if you lose on purpose for like 8 years in a row, it's gonna seep into the entire franchise. And I think that's what we're not that Bridgeport's losing on purpose or tanking in the AHL. There's
no benefit to that.
Right. If you're but they're losing so much, as you say, it's going to seep into everything. It's going to seep into the furniture and stuff. So I do think that's the biggest problem. The one thing I do think is pretty intriguing right now, and putting Isaiah George aside just because it's a small sample, and he's just kind of come out of nowhere in terms of prospect people who he wasn't on anyone's radar, but the guys that they seem to be succeeding with, at least right now, as they're in the development phase of their career, are all college guys, right? Like they're hitting on these guys. It seems like Quinn Finley and like Jeffries, going back to him. So I do find that a little interesting that it seems to be weighted towards the NCAA route right now for the Islanders, compared to Europe or the OHL, the Canadian juniors.
And if you do rewind a bit, I think you kind of forget, but you talk about a lot of guys that are on the team now or were. Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Ryan Pullock, Adam Pellick all went through Bridgeport successfully.
Yeah.
The Devon Taves went through Bridgeport. So there were a lot of guys that did go through the system, and I don't think they had much success back then either. Because I think didn't Bridgeport make the playoffs in like the last year or two?
Yeah.
And it was the first time, long time.
It was I think the first time since they were wearing those blue, really cool jerseys with the Sound Tiger on it.
Oh, okay.
Like Jason Krog down there. And,
yes.
Hobie
Baker winner.
Wade Dublowitz was the goalie, right? So
Right.
in that playoff series, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
If it wasn't him, it might have been Rick. Like that's how long ago we're talking, right? It's been a really long time since this team made the
Yeah, but I
playoffs.
guess I'm kind of making the counterpoint to the whole Bridgeport argument because they weren't that great back then either.
Right.
But they did have guys coming up through the system. I think now we just have to wait and see if they do have some success now with the guys they have down there. The problem is there just aren't a lot of promising prospects coming through. Or maybe we're seeing the ruining of Maggio and Dufour and the guys that are there now. I don't know, because there was a lot of hype behind Dufour, a little bit of hype behind Maggio. We're not really hearing much. As far as I know, they're struggling down there. So I don't know if that's because of what's Bridgeport is in the furniture, like you said, or these are guys that just weren't going to pan out anyway. It's tough to say, but what we do know is things are not perfect in the pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah. Explain LTIR and when it gets used. Varley is hurt and goes on LTIR immediately. Mike Riley gets a heart procedure done 3 months ago, and he was just put on LTIR this week. Why the difference, and why did it take so long to get Riley in LTIR?
That is a great question. I kind of wish Stefen was here for that because he's all over that. Mike, you might be able to help out as well. But it usually comes down to money, right? When they make those decisions.
Yeah, it's about maximizing the LTIR space because you can't accrue cap space while someone is in LTIR. So you might as well wait for like a bigger contract to put in one of those spots, I think is how it works. But as you said, it's sometimes reads like Greek.
You usually wait until you're as close to the cap as possible before you start utilizing the LTIR, because that allows you to go above it, right? If you're bringing in more players. So we know that answer is not perfect, but that's generally what it's all about.
Yeah. Thomas Antonetti asks, with the 3-game winning streak now, do you feel this may change plans for this team to trade away any expiring contracts to draft picks and prospects and remain all in, or is that still the plan?
Well, Lou came out of the office the other day, gave us a little update, and he was going to say what he said no matter what. No matter what's going on in his brain, he was going to tell us that he believes in the team and he's not looking to sell anybody. I believe that, especially after these 3 games, that they're probably looking at each other saying, okay, we got half a season to make this happen. And I think it's just more important to the Islanders organization to make the playoffs and lose than it is to sell off players and try to retool for tomorrow, so to speak. So I think that they are going to hang on for dear life until it really looks like they're out of the mix before they make any deals. If you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, and I think that maybe there's not so much a coincidence that they put forth 2 of their best efforts of the season right after he talks and says that. It's
Good point.
We're fans. It's really hard to kind of relate to what a professional athlete has going through their minds, but
sure,
they want to win every game, every second. That's
right.
why they're there and we're here. But you hear a general manager who's famous for not saying anything, and it's not like you said, he didn't say anything, but he did say, no, I'm not trading your buddies. Like, I'm not trading Anders Lee's kid's uncle, Brock. I'm not going to trade him. I'm going
right.
to, he's going to stick around for as long as possible. And that does, I think, jolt these guys a little bit. They pay attention. They know, especially when Lou talks. I think they'll know that, hey, Lou's here saying this. I'm going to trust him. They all trust him, I think, as more than anybody. So it's such like coach speak and cliche what he said, but I do think it actually goes, especially for a team that's been struggling and knows where they are in the standings. Be like, hey, if he believes in us, we do now we have a homestand to keep our buddies here and not play out the string in March and April, which is a miserable thing.
There you go.
Yeah. Next up from Porkins, which I believe is a Star Wars reference.
Okay.
Chances we trade Dobson if we are out of the race by the deadline, and if so, what do you think is a realistic return?
I personally don't think Noah Dobson is going to be traded, despite the fact that he isn't having the season everybody kind of hoped and expected he would. I don't think that necessarily means he's untouchable, but I just look at the Islanders' defense as a whole, and I'm like, if you trade Noah Dobson, who the hell is playing defense on that team?
Right.
Who's filling that void? I mean, sure, they can go out and get somebody else, but why, for me, I don't see why you make that effort. I think you just keep him where he is, and you hope, this is a subject that comes up a lot on the show too, is Noah Dobson, the season that he's having. You hope that he kind of rediscovers his game from last season, at least on the offensive side, and we're still waiting for him to become a consistently good defensive player, because that's still an issue. That's still a problem. You talk about that waved off goal against Vegas.
Right.
I was looking at him and his coverage there, and I was like, geez. I was like, he can't, the refs let him off the hook there. The linesman did, I should say. So I don't think he's going to be dealt by the Islanders. I'm not even sure what the return would be. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's very unlikely. And the one thing I would say is thinking that's unlikely means you're probably saying a major trade like the Horvat kind of trade is also very unlikely, because any team that's calling the Islanders is saying like, well, we're not going to deal with you unless we're getting this guy.
Right.
So the Elias Pettersson pipe dream then
that's what I was going to bring up.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that it makes sense to keep him now, especially in a weird way. This season that he's having could end up being a blessing in disguise next year with his contract, because I do think the ceiling's there for him. I don't.
He might be selling low.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. And I just don't think I think what he did last year is not him as a player, and what he's doing this year is not him as a player. It's obvious, and it's a cop out. It's somewhere in between, and that's where I expect him to go. But I just think he's a number 2, number 3 defenseman, a good one. An upper echelon, and is like a 2 or 3. But the Islanders are sorely missing that guy to make Noah Dobson play the role he's supposed to play.
Right, like look at how Devon Toews was expendable.
Right.
We all groan about that, of course, but he was quote-unquote expendable because you had a Noah Dobson waiting in the pipeline. There is nothing like that coming, and as we just learned from Chris Peters, looks like Isaiah George may not be more than a 5'6". So if you're hanging your hat on Isaiah George to be the savior, if Noah Dobson going out the door, I don't think that's the answer. So I think they have to hang on to him, at least for now.
I agree.
How likely is it that John McClann has a job on our coaching staff at the end of our next season? At the start of our next season.
At the start of the next, listen, I know we still have half of a season to go here, so a lot of things can happen, a lot of things can change. I mean, look, Lou might be loyal to these guys to a fault, but at the same time, Stefen and I talked about this, I think, last week too, how you change out the staff and it hasn't done really much of anything. You can go down the list now of the guys who are behind the bench, running the power play, running the penalty kill even, and not much has changed as far as the success goes. It's gotten worse, actually. So if let me put it to you this way, if Lou Lamoriello is still the general manager at the start of next season and Patrick Waugh is still the head coach, I think John McClain will still be behind the bench next season.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing I'd add is I feel like assistant coaches they get a lot of flack for these kind of things when it's really a big picture situation, right? We're seeing it in Toronto. They want Mark Savard fired. I mean, that team's fighting for a division title, and he's an assistant coach on the staff because he runs a power play that's struggling.
Right.
They want him out. Like, that's not how it works. Like, this is not this is a big
They're
picture
easy
thing.
scapegoats.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say, hey, he deserves some of the blame because that
Absolutely.
is part of his job. Right?
Yeah.
If that was my job or your job, we'd be hearing about it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure he does hear about it. But I don't think it's as simple as power plays struggling. We got to get rid of this guy, and that he will. I would say it's as you did. Lou and Patrick Waugh still here. So is he.
And one more thing I'll say about the power play. I mean, I'm sure you found yourself watching games and you're like, oh man, that was a nice setup, but they didn't finish.
Right.
How many times did they put pucks into the goalie's crest or whatever the case may be? So sometimes the power play actually looks good and they just don't get the results.
Yeah. Can you see Lou trading Brock or Palmieri even if we are in a playoff position?
I'm still going to say no. I'm still going to stay stubborn on that. I don't think guys like that go anywhere unless they're out.
Yeah, and I think Lou also runs the team so differently from anyone else in the NHL, and people kind of blanket and put him in with them. And look what he did the season where everything went wrong, right? And that year, he didn't trade anybody at the deadline. You know, the Islanders were in a much more perilous spot. So he's a unicorn in a weird way. He's painted as like the typical prototypical like hockey man GM, but he's 81 years old. He is the unique one in this ecosystem, and he runs the team in a very unique way. So I would say that I actually find it unlikely that those guys are gone, even if they're like within shouting distance of a spot.
You're probably right.
Does anyone want to trade either EP40 or JT Miller? Think our locker room doesn't need either one.
Okay. Listen, either one would be a nice dream. adding to that forward group. But again, I don't know what they're giving up, what they're sending the other way, and if it's, I mean, I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what they would give up for those guys, and I think it would be more Pettersson than Miller anyway, as far as the Islanders' radar. And supposedly the Islanders have inquired. Stefen actually put a piece out about that, saying that they were talking to Vancouver. Who knows how serious the talks were? Apparently, Pettersson and Bo Horvat are really tight. So there's certainly, a fit there. They've obviously been dance partners in the trading circles before as well. So could it be a possibility? But you're gonna send out a lot, and I don't know if Islander fans are going to be happy with whatever does go the other way.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to have Elias Pettersson on the team. Like, it'd be great, but you're completely changing the makeup of this team, and maybe that's a good thing.
Sure,
but
maybe.
But the parts that you're changing out aren't going to be the ones that people want to see go, that are getting stale. It's going to be Barzal and Dobson or
right. It's not going to be the Brocks and the Kyles.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a much different kind of look, and it could create a lot more holes that the Islanders don't have right now. So it's I mean, all trades are scary, but
yes. Proceed with caution.
I would lean towards I want Elias Pettersson more than I don't want him, but it's scary.
Yeah, we're scared.
Mr. Tom Boyle asks, with the emergence of Hogberg, do you see the Islanders trying to trade Varley?
Well, first of all, he's hurt. I think he's back on the ice, though. I think he was taking shots on his own recently, but I don't. Listen, in the few appearances that Hogberg has made, he's been great. He was excellent last night. Tip my hat to him. I didn't see that. In fact, once I saw that he was starting last night, I was a little nervous.
Me too.
I wasn't
the way he
sure.
started too. Like the first couple shots were
right. I wasn't sure it was going to go the Islanders' way, but he stood tall, and I don't think so. And the truth is, at this point, when Varlamov was healthy, didn't look great, and now he's not. So I don't even know what they would get for him other than a little bit of cap space, right? And that's something you got to look at too. I think he's got 2 years after this season. So does another team want to take that on with the salary that he makes? Not looking that great. Injury problems. I'm not even sure he's looking that attractive to other teams right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say Hogberg just did what you want out of your third goalie, right? He's supposed to come in and give you a chance, and he's gone above that, obviously, especially against Utah.
Yeah.
I was saying, I always say Sorokin, he plays like you can create a movie score to Sorokin, it would sound like a symphony. But with Hogberg, it was very like accordion-like. He's a very, it wasn't like wild, but it was a lot of fun watching him play and the way he played. But he did what he was supposed to do as a third goalie. That's his job. And one good game or one good stretch doesn't make him an NHL backup, but we'll see. So a good thing. Just we don't need to look a gift horse in the mouth, I guess.
There you go.
How many points out would they need to be by 4 Nations for Lou to actually decide to sell?
I think that's the question, right? That might be the point in the season where he has to really say to himself, okay, they're in it, let's just go all in, and I don't mean, acquire players, I just mean go all in and on trying to make the playoffs. Or if he's going to say, all right, we gave it a good go up until this point, but it's not working out. It's time to sell off. And you talk about how unique Lou is to start with, right? How, again, maybe loyal to his players to a fault as well. Like you talked about that previous season, we've talked about that as well. They hung on to Char, they hung on to Andy Green, where they could have maybe gotten a low-round pick for them, whatever the case may be. But what's his threshold? I mean, I would have to think anything above 6 points out at that point in the season, especially with the number of teams in the pack, that would be a tall hill to climb. I think that Lou would really have to say to himself, yeah, these guys got a 13-0-2 run in them, right, to get in there. Because, there's just too many teams involved now that are either in their way or sitting in the spots. They're gonna win hockey games. All it takes is 2 of those teams. And there's 6 of them, right? Whatever it is, maybe more. So I think you got to look at 6 points, and that might even be too much, But I think you get to that point, and they're still 6 or above. Like, for me, I'm saying sell. As much as I want them to make the playoffs, I'd rather see them win. Right. I'd rather see bonus hockey in April, even if it's 4 or 5 extra games. But I'd rather them get in. But I think for me, it's 6 or above. What do you think? Yeah, it's probably that area. Like, for us, right? I think for Lou, the number's 10? Yeah, higher. Right? I do think. I think it's like anything where they're, 5% or higher to make the playoffs. I would be shocked if he goes and takes the knife to this team, because it's just not his MO. So right. I think a lot of people a couple weeks ago were pointing to the deadline he worked with the Maple Leafs when they sold. Mm-hmm. He's been a GM in this league for 40 years, and people are dinging up one season 10 years ago, right? So it's just he kind of showing your hand, and he's 81, 82 years old. Like, I don't think he's the guy who's going to try to rebuild the team through doing that stuff. So yeah, the prudent thing to do would be what you were saying, but the Lou thing is going to be different. I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right. Go ahead, Edzo.
This looks like to be the last one. Okay. Just to go back towards the farm system yet again, Bridgeport seems to be like a hockey quagmire. How can we trust that our prospects aren't getting lost up in the weeds?
I mean, that's exactly what we were just saying. It's very possible, because losing sucks. No matter where you play. I play men's league. I hate to lose. Right. Playing D division men's league. But, you have that much losing, and you wonder how much that creeps into the mentality. And now these are big boys. They're professionals. They're getting paid good salaries, even to be, in the system, right? But that stuff's going to weigh on you, and it's all, and especially, look, in any sport, but it's all about confidence too, right? You got to be able to feel good about your game and feel good about yourself coming up through the system. And if you're losing games and not doing well down there, I mean, that can definitely have an adverse effect. So, again, I trust me, I think they would be better off if they were winning hockey games in Bridgeport than doing what they're doing now. Yeah, it's exactly, and I don't really know what the answer is too. Like how do you make an AHL team good? I have no idea. So it's a question that's been hanging over the Islanders organization's head for a really long time. That's a great point, and you would have to think it's even harder for this version of the New York Islanders right now, because the pipeline is so bare. So already there's not a lot of talent to put there from what they're drafting. And then the other side of that combination is bringing in veterans that are basically career AHLers, right? Like the 20-something to 33-somethings that, are committed to riding the bus, right? And you're sprinkling those guys in to help, form the team. And I guess if you don't bring enough of those good enough players in that mold in as well, like, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. So when, when you don't have the kids in the system, you don't have the right veterans, like, this is what we're going to get. I give a lot of credit to fans in Bridgeport, man. Like, you think we've had a tough, and we have over our years as Islander fans, but man, that's a tough ask to show up for games. They lose the well, and then they get the soundtrackers the Bridgeport Islanders.
We got one more in from Porkins just now. He says, thoughts on Padjo's season so far? Seems like he's been fairly quiet out there, other than his work in the circle.
I'll let you lead, man. Go ahead.
I think he's been exactly what he's supposed to do this season. Mm-hmm. For the first time in a couple seasons, he's like played the J.G. Pageau role really well. I actually think if I was someone on the outside looking to acquire an Islander for a playoff run, that's not going to cost an arm and a leg. I'd be like, I want this guy. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Proven playoff performer, good in the dot, can kill penalties, scores big goals, especially against the Rangers. Like this guy is, I think he's a difference maker, an under the radar difference maker for a team that needs like a number 3 center.
He's tailor made for the playoffs,
Yeah.
and he's showing again this season that he can be that guy, you're talking about. Like, I think he would be an easy sell if the Islanders do fall out. Yeah, sure, you can look at the contract and all that stuff, but I think you got a team that's looking for a guy who can crush it on faceoffs, play a good two-way game, and he is that exact guy in the playoffs who's going to score that chippy goal. In Game 3 when the game is tight with less than 5 minutes to go in the third period.
And I think in a way, Islander fans are going to overestimate, if they do sell, the return on Palmieri and Nelson, and then underestimate the return on Pajot. So I do think that he's a guy that's really interesting for the rest of the year. And as Porkin said, he's been quiet, but that's kind of just who he is. So he's just going to pop up here and there and do the little things right.
And if they do blow our minds and go on some kind of run to get into the playoff picture, then he's going to be a key part of that.
Exactly,
for sure.
Yeah, and that looks like it's it.
All right, so that's going to do it for Questions Brewing, and we're going to get ready to wrap the show. But before we do, want to remind you all about our Patreon over at patreon.com/HockeyNightNY, featuring exclusive content, Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes, merch and partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang out with us here in Floored Media in Rockville Center while we air the show. It's a great way to support the show, so please check it out, patreon.com/HockeyNightNY. And now we can wrap this thing up. Well, first and foremost, I have to thank my pal Mike Leboff over here for coming down, filling in for Stefen, doing a great job. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, this is some setup you guys have here. I'm floored in a
done.
In a good way. Yeah.
Very well done. Yes, very, very much appreciate the assist. Stefen, hope you're feeling better out there. We'll see you next week. And, of course, a big thanks to Chris Peters of FloHockey for giving us a great spot talking about the Islanders prospects. And now I want to thank our wonderful sponsors once again, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. And a big thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW 1500 for a free consultation. And last but not least, a big thanks to Tovi Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off. So folks, please also remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. Mike, where can everybody find you? On Twitter, on the internet?
Yeah,
podcast.
The podcast is called Islanders Anxiety. We record mostly Sunday nights as well, or Sunday afternoons. We've been doing it for about 10 years and have a good time doing it, Dan and I, and we'd love to have you over if you aren't listening yet. And if you do, thank you. Good to see you here as well. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, there are listeners in the chat.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Love that.
They love you. They say
you.
you're a good guy.
Thank you.
You're a good guy.
Yeah, that means a lot.
Good guy.
To me. I'm hungry.
Everyone agrees.
Everyone. I don't know what to say.
You should see the things I say about Stefen every week.
Well, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me on the Big Lebowski for now. Whether I'm still on Twitter by the time this homestand is over, remains to be seen.
Is that an all-time favorite movie for you?
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, great one. All right, well, you can find myself on the Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. You can check out the website, HockeyNightNY.com. Jake, and where can we find you?
Find me on Twitter at Jake Radonis, Radonis.
There you have it. So, for Mike, for Jake, for Ed, for Happy Jay, happy old Jay back there, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. We will see you next week.